There isn't usually much going on in Ibiza in November, but this year it's a little bit different because the White Isle plays host to the launch of the brand new Toyota CHR. I'm going to be driving it for the very first time today, and I'll also be telling you everything else you need to know about this brand new small SUV that also thinks it's a coupe. So stay watching, and if you want to save up to £2,280 on the price of the outgoing CHR, just click the link up there at the top or Google What Car Deals. The CHR has been around for a few years now. It was originally launched back in 2016, when it's fair to say that Toyota had a bit of an image problem. Sure, its models were very reliable, and many of them impressed for fuel economy too, but fashionable? Not really, at least not for anyone under retirement age. But the CHR changed that with its really bold and quirky styling, and really, it's more of the same with this new version. The basic silhouette of the car is very similar, and actually it sits on the same underpinnings as before as well, which are also shared with the more conventional looking Corolla. The design is quite a bit more modern though, so you've got this hammerhead front end here that we've also seen on the fully electric BZ4X, and if you come around to the side, you will notice integrated door handles. They are now flush with the bodywork. Round at the back, the boomerang taillights have been replaced by this single bar that goes right across the rear end, and when you lock or unlock the car, then you get a light sequence with the car's name in the middle. We're used to seeing manufacturers making cars bigger with every new generation, but actually that's not the case here. The new CHR is slightly smaller than before because it has a 25mm shorter front overhang. It is 35mm wider though, and it's available with bigger alloys as well. These are 19s, but you can have up to 20s on some of the other trim levels. And these changes, Toyota says, and I'm reading from the press release here, are to make the CHR look poised and dynamic from every angle. But it doesn't really matter what Toyota thinks, does it? It matters what potential buyers think. So let us know what you think of the look of the new CHR in the comments below. In the UK, the old CHR was available exclusively as a so-called self-charging hybrid, but this new one will also be offered as a plug-in hybrid. Now, the term self-charging hybrid is potentially a little bit misleading because it isn't as though it magics electricity out of the ether. In fact, any energy that goes into the battery is generated either directly or indirectly from the petrol engine under the bonnet. And because the battery is tiny, you won't get more than a few hundred yards on pure electricity anyway. There are big fuel economy benefits though. The cheaper 1.8 can officially do more than 60 mpg, and even this more powerful 2 litre promises around 58 mpg. And in our real-world True MPG tests that we do back in the UK, Toyota hybrids usually perform extremely well. In fact, this car's smaller sibling, the Toyota Yaris Cross, is the most efficient car we've ever tested. The plug-in hybrid version is appropriately named because to charge it up, that's exactly what you do. It can accept up to 7 kilowatts, so a 0 to 100% charge takes around 2.5 hours. And when the battery is full, you'll officially be able to do up to 41 miles of pure electric driving. That's not bad at all, even if 30 miles is probably more realistic in the real world. Official fuel economy figures haven't been announced yet, but as with all plug-in hybrids, they're likely to be complete nonsense anyway. One thing you won't be able to have is four-wheel drive. It is offered in some other markets, but in the UK, all CHRs are driven by these front wheels. Just like on the outgoing CHR, there are 4 basic trim levels: Icon, Design, GR Sport and Excel. However, for a limited time, there's also the Premier Edition that we're driving today. That bundles together pretty much all of the luxury and safety kit the new CHR is available with, but it isn't cheap, and even entry-level Icon trim comes with a reasonable amount of kit, including keyless entry, a reversing camera, climate control and LED headlights. And there are 17 different colours and colour combinations to go for. If you like this metallic golden finish, that is called Sulphur, and for the first year that this car is on sale, it'll only be offered on range-topping Premier trim with this Bitone Plus black rear end. If you like the Bitone Plus look, you can have that with other colours, but you need to go for GL Sport trim for that. And if you just want Bitone without the plus bit, that just means a black roof, you can have that on some of the cheaper trim levels. Prices start at £31,290 with this range-topping Premier Edition and the 2 litre engine topping out at just under £43,000. Prices for the plug-in hybrid haven't been announced yet. That isn't due to arrive until next year, but we'd expect to see a premium of around about £4,000 over this regular hybrid. Like other Toyotas, the CHR comes with a 3-year warranty as standard, which isn't particularly special to be honest. But if you get your car serviced at a Toyota dealer every year, then that will be extended for up to 10 years or 100,000 miles, whichever comes first. Apart from the looks on the outside, of course, the biggest change to the new CHR is actually in here, the interior. So perceived quality has definitely taken a step forward. You've got lots of nice soft touch plastic up here on the dashboard. and also this suede effect fabric on the inside of the doors on some of the higher trim levels. This gear selector here also looks pretty much identical to what you find in a Lexus NX. And on the whole, build quality is, as you'd expect from Toyota, feels pretty robust, although there are a couple of exceptions. So where the door butts up against the dashboard, that feels pretty wobbly, to be honest. And also the covering on the A-pillar up here, that doesn't feel particularly well secured either. So pretty good in most respects, with a couple of exceptions. Toyota says twice as much recycled plastic is used in this car's interior as in the old CHR. And actually, although this particular car has leather seats, it's the range-topping Premier, it has this sulfur stitching here. If you go for the cheapest trims, then you get fabric seats, and they are made from 100% recycled bottles. And if you go for some of the mid-level trims, they have suede effect with synthetic leather, and that is apparently made from 45% recycled bottles. Now, the driving position, you do feel like you're in something higher than a regular hatchback, which you don't in, say, a Skoda Kamiq. But if you like a proper high-up elevated SUV driving position, this car doesn't do that as well as some cars in this price bracket, like the Volvo XC40 and the Range Rover Evoque. All versions have plenty of adjustment in the seat. You'll just have to do that manually if you go for Icon or Design trim. All other trim levels get full electric driver's seat adjustment, although you do get adjustable lumbar support on all trim levels apart from entry-level Icon. The passenger, though, they don't get full electric adjustment on any trim level, and they don't get adjustable lumbar support either. This range-topping Premier model gets a panoramic roof as standard with no sunshade. It has special coating that's designed to keep heat in during winter, but stop the car feeling like a greenhouse in the summer. So it's a bit like what you'll find in a Tesla. And unusually, Toyota says it increases headroom here in the front by about 3 centimetres. Now, one of our biggest criticisms of the old CHR was its infotainment system. Even by the standards of the day, it was very basic, and you didn't even get Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, smartphone mirroring until a couple of years into its life. The good news is the system in this car is much, much better. There are a couple of caveats though. So this 12.3-inch display, you don't get that if you go for entry-level Icon trim. You get an 8-inch screen, and we haven't tried that yet. But the screen in this car is positioned quite high up, it's angled slightly towards the driver so it's easy to see, and it's pretty easy to use as well. The operating system's not the most intuitive in the world, but you get the hang of it fairly quickly, and also responds quite quickly to presses. And if you like a good sound system, then the 9-speaker JBL stereo that's fitted to this car, and it's also on GR Sport models, it's optional on Excel, sounds absolutely fantastic, and it is one of the best systems in the class. A couple of other things to mention. So this 12.3-inch digital driver display, that is standard on all versions apart from the entry-level Icon. And there is also a 64-colour ambient interior lighting system. And that changes the lighting throughout the day, depending on the light outside. And it's also linked to the climate control system. So if you want to turn the heating up, then it should glow red and make you feel a little bit more toasty. One more thing, this strip of ambient lighting here, if you go to open the door and the car detects a cyclist or a vehicle coming up the side of you, then it will glow red. And if you keep pushing the door open, then it will start to flash to warn you to wait and look properly. One of our other big complaints about the old CHR was that despite being a reasonable size on the outside, it had a similar footprint to a Seat Ateca. It was something of a reverse TARDIS because when you got inside, particularly in the back, then it felt pretty cramped and claustrophobic. And given that this new car has the same coupe-esque swooping roof and rising window line, it probably won't surprise you to learn that rear space still isn't the CHR's strength. I'm just over 6 foot tall. This seat in front is set up for my driving position, and as you can see, my shins are wedged against the back of the front seat there. And if I try to lean back into my seat, then I can't because my head just hits the ceiling there. There's no point in having a headrest at all, really. So that's not particularly comfortable, and I'm not sure it's great for safety either. And if you close the door, then things become even worse because it feels quite claustrophobic in here. Not a lot of light gets inside. If you only plan to put adults in the back occasionally, or you've got young kids, this car has 2 ISOFIX points on the outer rear seats, then it isn't going to be a deal breaker. But if you want something that's a practical family car, then this probably isn't for you. And given that rear passenger space clearly wasn't a priority when Toyota was designing the CHR, it probably won't surprise you to hear that boot space isn't great either. So there's about the same amount of space for luggage as there is in a Volkswagen Golf. Not terrible, but it's worth knowing that the similarly priced, boxier Skoda Karoq can carry quite a bit more. There's no height adjustable boot floor either, that's a little bit disappointing. And the plug-in hybrid, we haven't seen that yet, but we do know it has a higher boot floor and even less space for luggage. Now the old CHR was pretty good to drive by small SUV standards. That didn't really feel like an area that Toyota needed to do too much work on, but it says it's improved both ride comfort and handling on this new model, which is surely a good thing. And when it comes to ride comfort, I'd say this is one of the better cars in the class. Now, we are driving on some really smooth roads here in Ibiza, much better than back in the UK, but we have found a few rougher sections of road, and generally this car has dealt with them very well. It's not too soft and wallowy, it's quite well controlled, but definitely comfort is something this car does well. Handling, less so. This car actually feels a bit softer than the old CHR, and there isn't a huge amount of grip at the front end. I'm not talking about if you're barreling into corners at 100 miles an hour. I'm just talking about if you're driving reasonably briskly along a country road like this. You will start to notice that the front wheels start to run wide of where you want them to go quite early on. And actually, it can struggle for traction a bit as well. This is the 2 litre, so it has a reasonable amount of power. And if you put your foot down hard at low speeds, then the front wheels can struggle for grip and spin up. But I'm not convinced that most SUV buyers will really care. This car is more than good enough to drive. It's just not as much fun as something like a Ford Puma. In the UK, Toyota says that around 90% of buyers will go for the cheaper 1.8 litre, which has a bit more power than it does in the old car, so it will do 0 to 60 in around about 10 seconds. This car is the 2 litre, as I mentioned earlier, and it has quite a lot more power. It'll do 0 to 60 in around about 8 seconds. With both hybrid setups, if you put your foot down really hard, you do still notice that the revs, as you can hear probably there, will skyrocket and stay quite high because of the type of gearbox that this car uses. But things are less disjointed than in the old car, and as long as you're not driving too quickly, then it's pretty quiet most of the time. So the new CHR isn't the most practical small SUV, and there are certainly cheaper options, but if you love the way it looks and you want something comfortable, reliable and easy on fuel, then it's certainly worth a look. Thanks for watching. If you want to watch another video, click there, and to read our full detailed review on this car over at whatcar.com, click there.